Welcome back to Tools and Track. Today we're back on the Impreza and it's time to get organised. Who doesn't love a list? I made a list a few episodes ago and I've so far done bugger all with it because, as is the normal thing for me, I'll make a list and then totally ignore it and crack on and get lost. If you're a patron, you'll know what I'm talking about with that. Originally we knew that we had to do brakes, get a battery, repair the near side wing on the front, complete the near side rear welding, sort out the rear bumper bar, sort out the fuel line, which was the initial fault of the car, and sort out the front bumper bar, which now doesn't exist. From that, I've made a list of stuff to buy, but the list of stuff to buy has now become the list of stuff to do. So let's talk it top to bottom. This offside front wing support. By support, I mean the bottom bit that ties into the lower sill. That's completely rotten. We're going to have to get a weld on that at some point soon. Front bumper bar, we've ordered, we'll get on. Handbrake cables, we're going to start with that today. I've got the old ones out, we're going to get the new ones in. We also need to sort brake lines quite soon as well. Then after we've done that, we can get the tank in. Then we also need to deal with this subframe nut. Remember the captive one that came loose? I've ordered it, I'm waiting on it arriving. Then we need to repair this chassis leg. That may move up the list, to be honest, because we're running out of things to do. Then we can put the subframe in. Finally, start bolting things in. I've also ordered subframe bushes and they've not arrived yet, so that's sitting somewhat down the list, but we don't need it right away, so we're not too bad there. Then, once they're in, we can get the outrigger on, and that means we can get the diff in. I've put oil, because we have drained oil out it. I'm going to do a full flush in it, but it's specifically there because I'll forget to do it otherwise. I put Dinitrol down here, and then promptly remembered that probably should go on before we put on the fancy shiny blue arms. Once the arms are on, we can get the hubs on, and then we can get the suspension on. That might not be in this episode, this is way down the list, but the suspension is something that we're going to discuss. Once that's done, we can deal with the brakes, which is going to be, again, probably a whole episode in itself. And then once we've repaired the outer wing, which is really the last part, i.e. bodywork and cosmetics, we can fire her up and test her handbrake cables. Before we get kicked off underneath the car, I thought I would show you the dried off and finished remains of these patches done, which look a bit better. You'll also notice this curious black stuff. Why is there curious black stuff, you ask? Let me show you. Welcome to the freshly painted underneath of the car. We have Q-rusted and chassis blacked everything under here. And I'm pleased to say our wee patch welds actually look quite stealth. And the same on this side. The joys of black, it hides a multitude of sins. So that's all good to go. How satisfying. Okay, these are the old handbrake cables, which I have detached and laid out. Now I'm going to side by side the new ones. Now, interesting point to note about this, the left and rights were different prices. Having looked at the old ones, they're identical. So what the f is going on there? Oh yeah, there is a left hand and a right hand. It mostly comes down to these wee brackets and the way they're orientated, because they're obviously handed left and right. Nothing else I can really see. Annoyingly as well, I took them off before I worked out which one of the old ones was left hand and right hand. So we talk left hand from the front face of the car or the rear. What's wrong with near side and off side? Look, the first bit's on. Yay. Right, welcome to the lesser spotted inside of the car. There's our two bits that we'll poke through here. So we just need to pop these in. There's a clamp here, which holds in position. To realise I've done this in the wrong order. Right, getting this second cable in. And this little support bracket, which half of it is now full of carpet, also gets bolted by this. Take that all up. Right, that's the handbrake cables in, i.e. that's the first bit of new stuff I fitted to the car. Not gonna lie, that's pretty satisfying. Unfortunately, we now have a very long way to go. Next up, we need to deal with this weld patch repair on the back. Now, I'm going to have to get some cutting in a go. Well, this is a f***ing mess, isn't it? Although, I'm pleased to say, we have a fairly sectioned and easy to repair length of chassis leg. You'll also note I've had to chop out this previously repaired section here of, I don't know what you call this, skirt. I will stitch weld that back in, but it has to come out for the access here. Fucking hell, man, it's bright. It's been pissing with rain all day. I don't know what this bolt here is for. Nothing came out of it, so nothing's going back in it. We've notched a wee clearance here. That is going to have a captive nut welded onto the repair panel. That's just dead, and that captive nut was saved, obviously. And those two will be the mounts for the rear anti-roll bar. So, next step is to get some cardboard template and then make a repair panel. Alright, making repair panels. Up until this point, we've really not had to do this on Tools and Track, mainly because everything's either been glass fibre, not rotten, or so rotten that we've just binned it. What I'm going to do is get a length of cardboard, line it up, fold it around where that chassis leg is, and use that imprint to cut out and make a very rudimentary template for the length of steel I'm going to need. I'll skip to the end. Here's one I made earlier. That looks a bit like this. Now, I have not done the foldy around bit. I have literally just made the bottom section of what the chassis leg looks like. Everything folding up to the side, because I've cut it manually, will be a bit like that. As a result, we'll have to kind of just make do and mend with that on the car. I'm not sure how we're going to get around that, but it's not going to involve this template. Using this template though, we're going to cut out some excess, roughly in the shape of this, and start shaping it, because what the template will give us is the bend lines, and our repair panel will have a 90-degree bend on each side and will fit onto this chassis leg, providing more strength. Again, I've done this more or less off camera, but you can see on the screen now me hammering, swearing, hoping for the best to produce this. Not bad, eh? I've made this out of 2mm thick steel rather than the usual bodywork 1.6. Again, with a chassis leg, so I'm trying to put as much strength in as possible without making it completely unworkable. And one other thing we're going to have to do here, I've drilled a little pilot hole here. This will catch this anti-roll bar captive nut on the back. What I won't have on the other side, because remember it went ping and was surrounded by corrosion, is a captive nut for here. So we are going to weld one into the repair panel that looks a bit like this, and that gives us that. So this repair panel now can go on the car and hopefully will work. After a lot of hammering, we're getting something close to what this panel is supposed to look like. As you can see, we've got an overlap here, which I'll be honest, I'm probably going to run a seam weld along the top of rather than blend in too much, because I really want the strength in here more than anything else. And I'm not that bothered about it not looking great. So a wee captive nut sitting there. That hole has a captive nut still in it. I'm going to use this guy obviously to locate it, which is quite useful. And while we're doing that, we're just tweaking the rest. And it's just a case of line it up, shave a wee bit, tweak a wee bit, hammer a wee bit, and keep going until it's ready to weld. Welcome to my big brother confessional. We are probably going to have a wee time hop here where all of the footage seems to jump. Sunday, I came down here, filmed a lot of footage. So we went to the Outsiders meet, link up here, explaining what that is. We all stood around, chatted, had a few laughs, and then I went back to my car, which had been parked 50 yards away, unlocked. Once I got there, I discovered the phone that I normally film with, the charger, a whole load of stuff in the back seat, and my toolkit from the boot, gone. Some junky twat has raided the car. Now, I could almost live with the loss financially of everything. The biggest rager of it all was now there's going to be a big gap and no real dialogue for it. So, first up, we'll get back into it, and apologies for the sudden jump. Second up, junkies are scum, go and die. Let's get back to it. So what have we missed? Well, you'll notice here a nice freshly painted and welded chassis leg. Doesn't that look lovely? Wouldn't you love to know how I did this? Well, unfortunately I can't tell you. You'll also notice this stitch welded and repaired panel that we'd chopped out before. That's now back in place. Again, take my word for it, it was very exciting footage. Round here you'll see the other end. That's the, I mean it's neat enough. It's as welded as it needs to be. The strength's there. We'll cover it with underseal and it'll look pretty much hidden. Probably needs another wee coat just in this bit here, but yeah. You'll also note there's a brake line. No point in getting angry about it. It happens. And now we're going to talk about brakes and where I've f***ed up. Subaru fanatics will know that this is the transit block where two brake lines go in from the inside of the car and then pass through to go to the back, near side and offside caliper. The problem with this is, and this is just a personal opinion, it lives outside the car. So the two lines going into it are exposed to atmosphere. And I know why it's here. It's here so that you can disconnect it and do a repair quite easily, because these lines will obviously get rotten and whatnot. But these lines will also get rotten and whatnot because they live under the car as well. So A, I don't really dig this and I think it's a bit of a pointless pain in the arse. But B, it's also utterly f***ed. One of the threads in here, probably not so evident, is now completely and utterly shredded. So as a result, I'd have to buy a new one of these. And I'll be honest guys, I'm getting a bit sick of discovering a thing, realising it's humped and then having to wait a week rather than actually progressing the project. Plus these are 25 quid for a lump of brass. No. Instead, we're going to do the first bit of modification on this car. And this is my solution. 2 bits of steel, 1 bent and 1 not. Once I pass a bolt through this, it's going to clamp down on 2 female end unions and hold it so 2 male ends can go in. Basically, deleting the whole need for the brass thing while still supporting the brake lines. And that's the idea. I don't know if it's going to work. If you remember back, we ripped all the brake lines out because they were all crumbling. Now, that means we had to obviously replace all the brake lines, missing footage. The brake line from that union to each caliper has been done. Now we need to link that up to what's left inside the car. So, this is where the problem lies. Follow me. This is what I've managed to make. We've flared up 2 ends and made 2 female unions ready to take 2 male ends. So they'll pass through this hole and mate up to these, using 2 link pipes and attaching to this bracket. So, what is the problem? Well, I've made up the link pipes, which look a bit like that. As you can see, they go through the rubber. That's fine. The problem is, I don't know what left and right is. Because I did this thing that nobody should do, which is you rip it all out, you don't take any pictures, and you lose all reference. Now, as you can see, that's a bit of a convoluted route. And they could easily swap from left to right through this junction. Now, I've looked online, I've looked at various pictures, I've seen people do repairs, and no one has the full sort of here's the start to finish. So I'm going to take a guess, and I'm not really comfortable taking a guess. The reason for that being, these are ABS. So if I get the ABS module feeding the wrong calipers, and I actually need the ABS, it's going to start really making the back end a problem, because it'll trigger one when it's the other wheel that's losing the grip. See what I mean? So, my educated guess is that the line that's closest to the driver's side inside the car goes to the driver's hub. If it's not, we'll soon find out. And a big fiery ball of flames. would have been too easy, wouldn't it? Yeah. That doesn't look right. What's your problem? You're not really bedding in, are you? Oh. Okay, so that's the fuel tank in, except it's not. Cannot get the strap to fully tighten, like at all. I've actually had to put a longer bolt in just to get the thread to catch. So something isn't right. That's as far as I'm going today. I need to have a stop. I think about it. This is going to slow the project down, obviously, so this is probably not going to get resolved before this episode goes out. So, it's time for me to say to everyone running up the side of the screen right now, thank you for being Patreon supporters. As you'll know by now, you're hopefully getting a bit more for your money because I'm putting more content out on the Patreon site for behind the scenes stuff. If you want to know what that's all about though, go to patreon.com/toolsandtrack. To everyone who's maybe just joined us or has just simply pressed like and subscribed to support us that way, nice one. If you haven't done that, get liking, get subscribing, do all the stuff every other YouTube tells you to do, because it's the only way we grow. We'll be back soon with either low cost or Impreza. I'm going to be honest, it's going to be low cost because I need to go and have a think about this to see how we resolve it. But that's what projects do. So, hey ho. Cheers again guys. See you next time.